Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Sports Podcast, where we'll be conversing with the great and the good from the world of sport and business about, everything about sport in Sussex, from foot golf to fencing, from wakeboarding to powerlifting. Yeah, got that one in. And everything in between. We'll be sure to cover it, asking our guests what makes them tick and why business and sport go hand in hand. The podcast is sponsored by James Ross Jewellers, family jewellers in Sussex for generations. Now, obviously, I couldn't do this alone. As always, I'm delighted. I'm joined by the real sports expert, Stato himself, SBT sports editor, Laurence Elphick. How you doing, Loza?
Morning, I'm all right. I'm good. You?
Mate, very well. Buzzing to be back in the studio with you, mate.
Absolutely. It's been a little while.
It's been a little while. So, no, it's great to be here. And look, why don't you start by introducing our next guest?
Well, I'm delighted to welcome to the studio the one and only Aneela Rose from Rose Media PR. We'll come on to your sport in just a second, but it's delightful to have you in the studio. How are you?
I am great. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's actually brilliant to be here.
Good for you.
What a great setup you have here as well.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my happy place. I'm not
I can see with a great big smile on your face and Cheshire grins.
Bless you. We've got this going as a sports podcast every month. So we've brought you in because I know, obviously, you've got an affiliation in quite a big way to a particular sport. And Sam alluded to it just now. Not only are you the founder of a very successful PR company, but you are also a British powerlifting champion. Am I correct?
You are correct. Yes.
Fantastic. So slightly scary, Sam. We've got to be on our best behaviour because she can probably lift both of us together.
Fair play.
Bless you. Nice to have you along.
Thank you.
But powerlifting. It's not every day we even meet someone who does this sort of thing. So tell me how this came about.
How it came about, yeah. So I get asked this quite a lot, as you can imagine, because I'm probably not your typical, kind of muscular, big, heavy weightlifting type of person. I suppose that's what people kind of say to me, which is fair enough, because that's how I felt about it years ago, regarding weightlifting, bodybuilding, and powerlifting, and they're three very different disciplines as well, which I can come on to in a moment. But yeah, it kind of happened by chance, actually. It's not something that I kind of planned to get into, and it actually happened through injuring myself participating in another sport. So yeah, really interesting how this happened. So I kind of just rewinding slightly, I'll just come on to that in a moment. Rewinding slightly, at school, I represented the county in javelin throwing. I was actually very good in chucking a spear, believe it or not. And when I left school, I kind of left that behind, as a lot of us do, don't we? We kind of get into sport, and then when we leave school, we don't do it ever again. And that's what happened to me. But when I was at school, I wanted to be in the Olympics. Javelin throwing, Tessa Sanderson, Fatima Whitbread. You remember those icons of the 80s and 90s?
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, I remember them.
I think we're probably all similar age, 80s and 90s kids. So Tessa Sanderson for me and Fatima Whitbread were my absolute heroines of the day, and I wanted to be like them. And so I kind of, did the javelin at school. Then it kind of just dissipated, and I didn't do it when I left school. Then what happened in 2012? The Olympics came to London, and I was just beside myself. And it was actually my late father who said to me, Aneela, are you watching the javelin? You've got to get your javelin back out, because I got my own javelins. You need to start throwing again. And I remember saying to Dad, I'm in my 40s. I've not done this for like decades. What do you mean? Just do it, Aneela. Just do it. So I did. I actually chucked my javelin in my back garden. Right. Kind of nearly speared my children, but, gave it a go. And
the neighbour.
The other neighbour, yeah. And my husband saw the look on my face, and he said, Aneela, you have so got to take javelin back up. Anyway, I ended up tweeting Tessa Sanderson. Believe it or not, she replied.
Wow.
She said she didn't offer javelin coaching, but she knew of a couple of coaches at Crawley Athletics Club. Okay. So I joined Crawley AC, started throwing the javelin again, and I was the oldest one there, training with like youngsters, and I loved it. But what happened is that I injured myself because I wasn't a teenager anymore. My throwing arm, my shoulder wasn't as flexible. Right. And I ended up injuring my shoulder. So my jav coach said to me, Aneela, get to the gym, start strengthening your shoulder, start improving your flexibility, and then let's get this back on the road.
Right.
That's what I did. I hit the gym. Lo and behold, my personal trainer in the gym took me to that part of the gym that I most
avoid.
Where the barbells are, where the dumbbells are, they're really heavy weights are. He took me to that part of the gym, and I was kind of sitting there kind of going, ooh, what are you doing? Where am I going? And the very first squat I did was 50 kilos, which was my body weight, just slightly under my own body weight. Okay. And he said to me, Aneela, do you realise that you are freakishly strong?
Some people would be offended by that, freakishly.
I was like, okay, what does this mean? He goes, well, I just do me another 3 reps. I'm like, okay. And that's where it started. And I went back to my jav coach, and he said, well, Aneela, you're kind of better at the lifting than you are javelin. You better switch sports. And I remember being so upset, thinking, yes, but javelin's my first love. And he goes, Aneela, I am so impressed what's happening in the gym. Crack on with that, and then come back to me later if you want. Anyway, that's what happened. And so I ended up doing my first competition in 2016, powerlifting, because my coaches just trained me, and I loved it, and I got addicted, and it's numbers, and I want higher numbers, and you carry on, and that was where it started.
Wow. 2016, your first competition, so 4 years later kind of thing.
It took me 4 years. So I did the javelin for a little while. And at the same time I was doing jav training at Crawley AC. I took part in some masters competitions for javelin,
right.
all around the south. I'm at the Power of 10. I don't know if you know the Power of 10, so that's like the top athletes. So I'm kind of listed at javelin from then. So I actually did quite well. Kind of going back after a few years. And then when lockdown came, when the pandemic came, my daughter and I were training in our garden. We were doing some exercises, and we were on social media, and we train with my javelins. So I've got a trainer javelin. I've got a full on jav. I've got 3 of them. And my daughter and I were doing some drills in my garden, and it got noticed by Tessa Sanderson. And we ended up being in the local paper, and Tessa tweeted us saying, you've actually inspired me to train with my own children in my own garden during lockdown. And I just thought, out from the pandemic, that was the really big thing that my daughter, my family and my friends remember, that the kind of inspiring my children to exercise in the garden.
It's such an important thing, isn't it? We said I've got twins as well, and I think sport has given me so much. I played football at a reasonable level, and played all different. So I was one of them kids at school. I was swimming, I was karate, anything. I loved it. But my kids are only 7, but they're not as much into it. I just know how much value that sport gives you growing up, and the opportunities it creates and stuff like that. It's great to do stuff with them. And
absolutely. It's the feel good. For me, it's about how something makes you feel. Yeah. And I'm very much about that. From a very early age, my father, who got me into javelin, actually, he's not at a very early age. He's very sporty, and he was into weightlifting. He was a bodybuilder. Right. So, and coming from a Pakistani background, for a Pakistani father to encourage his daughter to go into sport and to keep improving is quite unusual. And I was very, very fortunate that my father was very open-minded, was a very modern Muslim man, and he could see the talent within his eldest daughter and me, and nurtured that. And I think from very early age, that's where it comes from, the drive that I have. Very much, I am my father's daughter, and that's where it comes from. And that's what I try and instill and try and show my own kids, that actually if I see that they're good at something, then that's what you need to nurture and support, because there's no point, kind of encouraging them to do something that perhaps they're not interested in, or they have no talent or natural skill. It's your natural ability. And I really do believe that everybody on this planet is good at something. And it's, if you're fortunate enough to have that recognised, either yourself or someone else to recognise that, and then to encourage you to follow that and to do more with that natural talent. I think that's where possible luck. I'm not really a believer in luck, but I think that's where luck possibly can come in.
Right place sometimes.
Absolutely. So with me, it's my father, and so that for me was the breaking the barrier to the whole kind of Muslim female being brought up in an Islamic household, and I was odd. I was seen as odd and different when I was growing up.
Was that frowned upon then, like by maybe the community or? I
would say there was a bit of an attitude, because with some of the circle, I was brought up in a place called Sutton in South London, and
I used to work there.
Do you
remember the Eagle Star building at the end? That's where I worked.
Hey, there you go.
It's not there anymore, is it?
No, it's gone. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, it's flats now, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We
Reminiscing.
Totally reminiscing.
Yeah,
That's what this is about. But it's one degree of separation, isn't it now? So there's a connection that we'll all have.
Yeah.
But yes, it was an interesting time because my mum is more traditional. Right. My mum is more probably a little bit more, kind of religious and a bit more traditional, as my father was a very modern Muslim man. And so bringing us up, the three of us, I've got a brother and a sister, we kind of had, I suppose, the best of everything, best of both worlds. But it was often a bit confusing for us. And I did have an identity crisis. So, doing the sport that I was doing, throwing the javelin, I sprinted as well. I'm a runner. I don't like long distance. I cannot do long distance. For me is more than 100 metres.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
So it's 100 metres for you.
100 metres for me, yeah. Anything more than that and I can't cope. But me, I'm a very dynamic individual in terms of like movement and sport. So things like squash, sprinting, javelin, those quick speed, how far?
100 metres, go on.
100, I haven't done it recently.
All right, she's going to say 9.9 seconds. Sorry.
No, not that. I think my fastest would have been about 17 seconds.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was years ago.
Quick.
That was years ago. But the sport, you would have to wear, the kit that you wear as well for doing athletics, for a young girl. Wearing the gym briefs and the vest tops.
Sure.
Being a Pakistani female, that's kind of frowned upon. And I know my mother struggled with that side of it. And then you had my father that was, yes, but she's good and she's going to win medals. And he was very competitive. That's where I get it from. For me, it's all about winning.
Right, okay.
It makes me a terrible parent.
Competitive mum on the sidelines.
It's interesting, because what's your take? Because there's obviously, there is quite a narrative out there and around with kids in schools and stuff and that. It's just a taking part and it's not about winning and losing. What's your sort of take on that?
What's my take on that? Yes. I think if my children, I am competitive and my kids know that, you have to be careful with children. I've had some parental training as well. I've been on courses and things because it's just really useful as a parent. And I think you have to just be a little bit more mindful when you're talking to children and the words that you use and the tone, because from a very early age, you can really affect them and what they feel about themselves. So although I'm very competitive and it is about winning, I'm an adult and I can deal with those emotions and that laser focus that I have. I can manage that. Children can't. So for me, they know I'm competitive. They know I'm in it to win it. Always, whatever I do. Otherwise, I can't. There's no point in me getting up out of bed in the morning and go for my training, because I'm in it to. And it's competitive with myself. Powerlifting is an individual sport. It's not a team sport. So it's a different thing, and it is all about me. This is what I'm going to achieve, and I'm going to do it because I've got a plan in place and I follow that, and it's all about that consistency and that prep and that planning, and that's where it comes from. So with my children, if they have been training, like my son is very sporty, my son is very similar to myself, so he's naturally a natural sports person. He's got a fast throwing arm. So we can see that, he can chuck stones at Brighton Beach. Literally, he can hit the pier. He can literally be on, the seafront, and he can lob, the West Pier, and he can literally lob the pillars from afar. He's that fast. If you've been training and you're training for a competition, you're in it to win it. And I tell them that, do it for yourself, but got to just be a bit careful.
It's really, I find it really interesting because I'm similar, but I think, are you okay with you if you didn't win, but that 100% you've done your best, and the same with your kids? I've got that sort of, as long as you give 100%, and I can see you give 100%,
and you can't give any more,
and you can't give any more. There might be someone faster or stronger or whatever than you at that particular moment. It doesn't mean that winners lose, whatever that looks like, but it means you can train harder, because you can get there. You just got to train harder, potentially, and have that focus. But as long as you've given it your 100% best, I'm okay with that. And I hope that's
the answer is yes. The answer is yes, absolutely. I think I think there's always learnings, isn't there?
Yeah, of course.
We know that through failure there is a learning, and I think it's just instilling that in the children, isn't it? And I think my kids do beat themselves up quite a bit. You know, they always want to succeed.
Yeah.
They might be getting that from watching mum, because I do get frustrated with myself when something doesn't quite go to plan, and it does happen. You know, in fact, when I'm training in the gym, I train to fail. You know, I am there to fail. We build muscle through failure. So you break down the muscle, and I train to hypertrophy, and that is breaking. You're basically training as heavy and as as much as you can to fail in the gym. So if I'm doing 5 reps and I fail at 3, it means I've really pushed myself, which is where I need to be. So if I'm not failing that weight, it means I've not pushed heavy enough.
Love that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my head around that. Just so if you wanted to do 5 and you got to 3,
yeah.
What are you saying that I just lost on that bit? Sorry,
because of the heaviness of the weight, you want to push yourself to failure, so you physically can't lift anymore.
Of course.
So
that's what it's about.
So go as far as you can go.
Absolutely, and I think not every session can be to failure, because you're with powerlifting. It's the whole body that you're using.
Yeah.
It's raw power. It's complete, utter raw strength that you're using for your whole body. The whole body exercise. That's why they're amazing for exercise. You almost don't need to do anything else in the gym other than the 3 power lifts, and do that for 45 minutes. And your body shape will change, you will lose weight, your metabolism will shoot right up, your adrenaline is rushing through your body, your hormones have been released. Powerlifting is incredible, and that's the main reason why I do it. I don't do any other exercise other than powerlifting. And I think the whole kind of failure side of it that you mentioned there, Laurence, and I think that's a really good thing that you've raised, because there is a bit of confusion around powerlifting and weightlifting and bodybuilding. What aren't they the same thing? I get asked.
I was going to ask you that.
People often say, "Oh, here's Aneela the weightlifter," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not a weightlifter. I'm definitely not a bodybuilder either." But there's a bit of all of that comes into play with powerlifting, and that's why it's a beautiful thing, because it brings all of it together. So with So just to explain the difference between powerlifting and weightlifting. So bodybuilding, I think we all know, the bodybuilding is isolating individual muscles in the body and building them up. So you break them down to build a muscle. You basically break that muscle down. The body then starts repairing itself, and it brings muscle. It kind of builds muscle on top of it, and it builds, it grows. So you break the muscle to build it and make it bigger. That's bodybuilding. So with powerlifting and weightlifting, powerlifting, it consists of 3 lifts: back squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. With weightlifting, you have 2 lifts. You've got the snatch and you've got the clean and jerk.
Right.
So the snatch is the kind of the full fluid, fast movement. From the floor up, descend, and then up over your head.
That's the
which
snatch.
You see in the Olympics.
Right. Okay.
Clean and jerk is the slightly slower one, where it's in 2 parts. So the clean and jerk is you lift it off from the ground, bring it up, stop, not reset, but you're kind of slowing down, and then you're pushing it up. That's the clean, and then the jerk. So that's weightlifting, and that's in the Olympics. It's an Olympic sport. Powerlifting is not an Olympic sport. It's too close to weightlifting and never will be in the Olympics, I don't think. So powerlifting is the 3 lifts, and powerlifting is slower. There's slower movements, and although weightlifting is technically more complex, it just is. You can recover from weightlifting faster than you can recover from powerlifting, because powerlifting is slower, and because it takes longer, you're exerting your body for a longer period, so it takes you longer to recover. So powerlifting can take longer to train for as well, because there's more moves. There's 3 moves, not 2. So it's generally, just to put that into context in terms of speed of execution for weightlifting, if you are like maximal snatch, for example, the speed, so the snatch is from the ground, pull it up over, that can be anything from like 2 to 2.2 seconds per metre. To do that movement. In powerlifting, it's about 0.3 seconds because it takes longer. So there's a massive difference there with the speed of the 2. So I flummoxed you both there.
No.
You're thinking about it.
You talk about the 3 disciplines for powerlifting. And you were very good doing the kind of giving me an idea of what you were talking about with the weightlifting. But can you sort of use your hands to show me what you mean by the power lifts?
Power lifts. So interestingly, power lifts are movements that you will do every day.
Okay.
In everyday activities, but you obviously don't think about it.
Yeah, sure.
And there's a few videos on TikTok and YouTube of like some personal trainers that are like, literally showing you like when you're bending down, lifting, reaching for things, So power lift. So the back squat is when you have the barbell on your shoulders, on the back, behind your neck, sitting on your shoulders.
Right.
You're holding it, and you basically squat down with it.
Okay.
And you come back up.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
That's basically a back squat. So
Okay.
you've got the heavy raw weight on your back,
Yeah.
and you have it balanced
Okay.
on your shoulders, and you move down, hold, move back up. So that's the back squat.
Okay. And
then the bench press is when you're lying down flat on your back.
Yep.
Your feet are kind of flat on the floor.
Yep.
And then you've got the rack above your shoulders, and you basically unrack it, bring it down to your chest,
Yep.
hold for a moment, for a second or so, and then push it back up.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And then
I've
you're
done that one.
done that one. And so you would have done.
You can tell, mate, you've been in the gym.
Sarky.
You're both thinking about it, right? What have I done? What have I done? And then the deadlift is the one where it's literally, that is the weight is just flat. The barbell is on the ground, and you're basically just lifting it off the ground, bringing it up to just above your knees. Hold, put it back down.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
no. It seemed like another lifetime there, but in my late 20s, when I was playing football, sort of 7-fish, I got into the gym
Probably would
quite
have
a lot,
done.
and I've got into quite a bit of weights and stuff, and I loved it. Same sort of thing. It's
addictive, isn't it, Sam?
It's so addictive. And
yeah.
because I'd trained all my life, like running and, like I said, all different types of sport. But it wasn't until I probably had about 3 years where I was in the gym all the time and watched what I ate and stuff, and I got in such great shape. And your body changes, like you say. Whereas anything else, like I said, I've run all my life, never really had any difference in you. But as soon as you start sculpting, you do, like you say, different. I've got, like you said, a bit addictive, but I loved it. It was such it's an amazing thing.
It's interesting what you say, Sam, because when you start to see results, like anything in life, when you take action and you see a result off the back of taking that action,
it makes you want to do it again and do it more.
Yeah, it's quite a simple thing. I try and simplify everything. I always talk to people, and I don't mean to insult anyone, like I'm talking to kids, because kids actually, they kind of get it, and if you break it down, they're kind of like, right, I get that, I can do it. And that is in life. I just think you want to empower people to think, yeah, I've got that, I get it, I'm going to do it. Because a lot of us will put a barrier in place, we'll set a limit, and often that limit, you're setting it yourself, not anyone else, you are. And I've learnt this is everything I talk about when I do my talks, when I when I go to schools, when I talk to my team at work, when I talk to friends, I'm often talking from my own experience. I try and practice what I preach. I'm very much about that because I work in PR, and I will say it because I work in PR, there's a lot of people that talk the talk, it's the industry I work in, so for me to stand out, or for me to, for people to kind of believe in what I'm saying, if I can take action and show them actually I've done it and I've been there. I failed multiple times, but I've got back up and I've continued, and this was the outcome. Then people start to believe you, and they actually start believing in themselves, thinking, well, actually, if Aneela has gone through this journey and gone through the strifes, the trials and tribulations of failing, succeeding, there's obviously, there's some kind of, it's working. There's rhyme and reason here, and it's working. So actually, I might give this a go. And I love it. I love it when people kind of listen and kind of think, they're taking it in and going, I've always wanted to do that thing, and I've just heard from Aneela, and I'm going to give it a go. And I hear that quite a bit in the decades that I've been, working and doing sport and stuff. I've heard this over and over, and it's wonderful, and that spurs me on.
Okay.
It's so inspiring to hear, because I think that certainly I talk about failure a lot. I've done a couple of talks on it recently because what brought me to Brighton originally, I ran a hair salon and that closed and it didn't work out, and that was one of my learnings. But so I find it fascinating because the things you learn from failure is it's not failure, it's feedback, isn't it? And that's
totally.
what you take it on. But
absolutely.
I'm keen to, just listening to you talk now, like your relationship with failure, do you not fear it then? I think, because that's what holds a lot of people back, isn't it? It's that fear.
It is that fear, Sam. Absolutely, it is the fear. And I think I've been really fearful, and I think, and again, I know I keep talking about it, but it's so relevant. And I want us adults to be children again, be a child again, because children don't have fear. I see it in my kids every day. I was just talking to Laurence earlier about my son who broke his collarbone on sports day, not at sports day, but after sports day, a few weeks back, 2 weeks before our holiday to Turkey. And I've just come back from holiday. And my son kind of, I watched him and I just thought, if that was an adult, we'd be like, huffing and puffing over it. And, we'd be laid up in bed and saying that we couldn't do this, can't do that. And, children just crack on and get on with it, which he did. He was on those water slides. He shouldn't have been, but he was. And he was fearless with a broken collarbone. And my husband and I watched him and we were in awe of him, although I was a bit paranoid about his shoulder.
Yeah, of course.
And he should. I still thought, as adults, and in my talks, I do talk about this. I encourage adults to be children again. Think like a child, behave like a child. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because everything and anything goes today. In the world we now live in, you can pretty much get away with anything. Yeah. So don't be embarrassed. Actually, if you are embarrassed, what the hell? What's the worst that is going to happen? And I think for me, again, it is about integrity. I have a business, I have an agency, I work with some global brands, so I have to be, a little bit sensible about what I'm doing. But equally, the people that I work with know Aneela, they know me, they know what I'm about, they can see what I'm achieving, they can see my journey, because I kind of vocalise it, I talk about it more, and I love to share my story, because when people hear it, they then start to feel like they can do too. It is a yes, it's not a no. And that barrier that you put up yourself, because it is you that's putting that barrier there, believe you me, when you really break it down, that any barriers that you see that are in front of you, that barrier, and it's a physical barrier, which then is obviously difficult, but it usually be a barrier that you've set up probably over years, thinking, I can't do this. Yes, you can. There is a way over it, around it, through it, under it. There is a way around that barrier. You have just got to find it. And I think one bit of advice that I kind of have learned over the years is that don't do it alone. The reason that I am succeeding, and I'm kind of comfortable saying that now, I wasn't for a long time, and it's only because my mentors are telling me, you are successful, Aneela, believe it. Because even I've had doubts. Am I successful, really?
It's the whole imposter syndrome.
It is, absolutely.
It's a bit of a buzzword or phrase at the moment, isn't it, about imposter?
It is.
But we all suffer from it, I guess.
We all suffer, but doesn't it make a difference when somebody else says to you, how great are you? That for me, even just being invited here today to talk to you, has given me a lift. Even someone like me that, you look at me and you think, okay, she's won an award and she's done this, she's done that. I still feel it. I still feel like I'm not doing enough. I still feel like that. And that comes from being very driven. I'm very goal driven. My life is about having goals.
Yeah. Talking of awards, you've obviously represented Great Britain powerlifting. Tell me about the awards you've won.
The awards,
because you seem to have got an award every year since time began.
That's nice. I love that.
A large trophy cabinet.
A large trophy cabinet. Oh yeah, they're just coming along. It's great.
Okay.
I've been working hard. I'm not a youngster anymore. I've been around a little while now, so I suppose it's a result of all the years of hard work, is how I put it. I've been working really, really hard since I was very young. I started working when I was 15. I literally got a newspaper round and didn't stop working after that. Yeah. So I've worked really, really hard. So for me, I think the powerlifting, I have got some amazing coaches. So they have pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. Without them, I wouldn't have achieved. I just wouldn't. So the powerlifting, I have broken some records. After COVID, a 2-year break from powerlifting to come back training in February this year and only having 6 weeks to train, because my coach said, right, you're getting back into this, girl. We want to get you, do the qualify, get the minimal that you need to qualify, which I got. I kind of totally blitzed it and did really well with the qualifying number. got that, made it, kind of won the qualifier, got first place, which qualified me for Team GB for the Worlds, which is on the 9th of September. So I have, I think when I look back over the last few years, let's say prior to COVID, I think I've won various powerlifting kind of medals and places, and I won the Worlds back in 2018.
Yeah.
Then a British. I've taken.
How many people were you competing up against in the Worlds?
It varies for each competition. I think it's been anything between 3 to 5.
Okay.
They're not big numbers because, again, powerlifting, and certainly in the masters category that I'm in, there are, it's broken down into age and weight classes.
Right, okay.
So it's really fair sport, which is just brilliant because it means I'm not competing against women that are perhaps half my age and double my body weight.
Yeah.
So
sure.
with each category, it kind of goes into the open, which anyone can enter.
Okay.
And you've got the junior, and even the junior is broken down: teen, junior, senior, and then you've got the masters 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've competed against 70-year-olds.
Okay.
Well, not directly compete. You only compete against people that are like in my exact weight class and in the exact age group. Right. So that means it cuts down the number of people. So I'm never competing against 10, 20, 30, 40 people. It's never that way. But with the Worlds coming up, I've looked at the list of competitors, and there must be about 20, 25 competitors.
Oh, wow.
So there's going to be a lot from America, from India, across Europe. So so more and more women are getting into powerlifting, and I've seen since 2016 the numbers of each competition are getting higher and higher, which is just fantastic. And I just think that's amazing, and
definitely.
yeah.
I think women in sport in general, look, we could talk about women in business, women in sport as well.
Yes.
And I think people like yourself who inspire more people to do that. And we've just come off the back of the Lionesses winning the Euros, which is amazing, isn't it? From a sporting perspective, and and how much that will inspire the next generation of people to get, women especially, to get into more sport. And because, like you said, there a lot of women maybe stop getting into business, getting into sport because of barriers that they put in front, or that are there that maybe stop them.
Yes.
What's I mean, because sorry to go back, we talked about the 3 disciplines. Which one are you? Is there one that you're better at than?
This is a great question, Laurence.
Okay.
Great. No, this is great.
Well done, Laurence.
Well done, Laurence. You score points there. Yeah. So bench press is my nemesis.
Right.
Bench press. My upper body's fairly weak. So for me, that's the one. When we talked about failure, that's what I fail with bench press. So lying horizontally and having a bloody heavy weight that you've then got to lower down onto your chest. You've got safety issues. You've got your traps, your back, your neck, everything, your delts, everything there, your triceps all come into play. And I have found, as I've got older, building up my upper body, it's actually been quite tough for me, because as you get older, building muscle, it's harder. It's much harder, to build those muscles. So bench press for me has been the one that I've been for 6 years now, been trying to really nail. And it's hard. Powerlifting takes years. If you're not naturally strong, it's hard. So, so the way that it works is that what you aim for with each of the lifts is that with bench press, if you are bench pressing your body weight, you're nailing it.
Right, okay.
With a back squat, you want 1.5 times, so 1.5 times your body weight you want to squat. And with deadlift, you want to do double your body weight. Right. So that's what you're always aiming for. So with my body weight, I've gone up a weight class because I'm slightly bigger at the moment. So I normally compete in the 56 kilo category. So anything between 52 and 56 kilos. And that's around 8 stone.
Okay.
8 stone. So you're looking at trying to lift. You can then work out what numbers you need to get for each one, and I'm nailing it for each of them. And actually for bench press, I got 55 kilo bench press, which was my body weight at the British. So it's taken me a long time to do it, but I've done it. So for me, that's the one. The one that I always pull out, thank you. The one that I always seem to pull out of the bag is the deadlift.
Right.
And my British record is 120 kilos for that at a body weight of, what was it? I think I weighed in at 52.5 kilo body weight.
Okay.
And I got 120 kilo deadlift.
Wow.
So for being in the Masters category, I think Masters 2, body weight, being quite a low body weight, so I managed to cut. And then to lift that, I'm quite happy to tell you as well that I peed myself on stage as well.
I wasn't expecting that.
I know you weren't.
Oh my God.
And anyone that's listening to this that does powerlifting will be absolutely cheering me on when they hear that, because any powerlifter that wets himself on stage lifting a weight means that you have absolutely pulled it out of the bag, especially for a female. Wow. And I didn't know that until it happened, because my kids were watching me. They're always watching me at my competitions, and they were like, "Oh, Mummy, what's happening?" And I was getting cheered. There's a video somewhere, embarrassingly, where people are cheering in the audience, and my coach is going, "Yes, come on, Aneela." And I'm pulling 120 kilos, which I'd never done before.
Right.
And I pulled it out of the bag at the British Championships in 2019. And I did it, and I never thought I'd ever do 120. That for me was a bloody heavy weight.
Wow.
But what you're doing for a female, where you're having to, you've got to, your whole body has to tighten up to a point that you never put yourself in that position, where you've got to get your breathing just right. So you inhale, you exhale, the timing, the way you hold the weight, the way you're focused, what you're thinking, and it's all happening quite quickly. So it's all over in less than a minute.
Right.
Less than a minute. The whole thing from when they call your name to when it's finished, that whole is less than a minute, and the actual pull itself is over in seconds.
Wow.
It's all happened quite quickly. You've got to pack a lot in, and it's got to be technically absolutely so precise to where your fingers are on the bar, to how tightly you're clenching, to where, even where you're looking, where your neck is, your head is, where your shoulders are. Have you retracted? Have you pulled you're listening to the commands?
Right.
If you don't listen to the commands correctly, you'll fail. You get the 3 red lights. You've got to get all 3 white lights. It's hard. There's a lot going on. So with all that going on, plus you're competing with yourself and thinking, right, I've got to hit the number, I'm going to get this. Your body's just going into overdrive. So then to go and, your body then reacts, doesn't it? And you don't know what's going to happen. So for that to happen to me on stage, I didn't know that was going to happen, but it happened, and I got the lift, and I don't really care.
Exactly.
You certainly left everything on the stage. To say the least.
And I wasn't the only one, so
Amazing.
It happened to all the best lifters.
And this was 2019.
This is 2019. And that was the deadlift of 120, and that was the British record. So, we have to see what happens at the Worlds. I mean, I'm slightly heavier, so in theory, I should be lifting slightly heavier weights now. But obviously, I've not been training. I've been properly out for like the 2 years, although I've been back this year.
Right.
I actually feel as though I'm not at the level that I would need to be to do the best that I can that I know I can do at the Worlds. But you know what? You asked me the question earlier about, doing the best that I can do. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to go and do. Yeah. I know that if I'd been training at the level and the amount that I would normally do, running up, leading up to a World Championships, I might have been able to kind of set my numbers slightly higher than perhaps what I'm setting for September. And that's in the back of my mind, slightly frustrating me because I've been out for like 2 years properly. So I normally train 4 to 5 times a week, but with going back into my business, with my kids starting different schools, with life just being really even more full on, it's a bit harder. Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
Go on.
You've had a lot of awards. You've broken a lot of records. We're talking about the event coming up in September, but I suppose what's been your standout moment? You're writing a book about Aneela Rose's life as a powerlifter. What's been the standout moment so far for you? Was it that moment on stage?
I think it is. That is the
That's
moment.
The one.
That is the one. The 120 kilos for me at the body weight. So it's not just the 120.
Yeah.
It's everything else around that. So it's the training up to it. It's the diet. For me, the diet, being able to cut. So what you do, there's the particular way that we, to be a powerlifter at the level, I suppose, that I'm at now and that I've become over the years, it's various things that lead up to that. So for me, consistency, the diet, but it's the attitude. Without attitude, you're never going to succeed, and that goes with anything in life, not just powerlifting. Almost forget your diet, forget your training, your attitude. And if for me, I am so laser focused. I cannot tell you, you know, when I commit to something, when there's something that I want to achieve, no matter what it is, it might just be like a small thing that I want to achieve that day, I will get that done and I'll make it happen. I'm just one of these people. You know, it's how I am wired. And I think we're all wired slightly differently. And, you know, some people say to me, you know, kind of, how do you fit it all in? How do you do it? And I find it a very odd question because I don't think about it. I just do. And it's just how I am naturally. So, you know, that for me, you know, to go back to your question, Laurence, I think the standout moments, leading up to that 120, there was a lot around it.
Right. That
was me wanting to absolutely come away from that competition with a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know, there's a moment that I know when someone asks me a question, it's that one that's going to come out. And that is the one. I just go 120.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
Yeah, because, you know, the diet I had to cut, I wanted to weigh in at a low body weight. So I cut. I'm not naturally 52 kilos. I'm not, but I weighed in. I cut so much. I think I lost must have been about 6 kilos of body weight. I think I lost within a fortnight. And there's a particular technique that you can use that powerlifters use. It's all to do with water loading, and it's all about, you know, kind of your calorie load and then your cut and timing and what you eat. Very, very precise. And that's so hard.
I was going to say that alone. Like, are you a bit of a foodie? Do you like food?
I love my food.
So that alone is a difficult thing.
It's really hard.
To do, isn't it?
But how great do we feel when we've nailed a diet? Anybody on this planet, when you've nailed a diet, you're like, you know, gosh, you know, that's a big deal. So to nail your diet, to nail your schedule, to nail your whole life, you know, to fit my training in amongst my business, my kids, you know, managing my health. So making sure it's not detrimental to my health. And that's a really big deal, isn't it? Because when you are dieting, it affects how you feel. It just does, you know, your hormones, especially for females, you know, and I'm, you know, at the moment I'm kind of perimenopausal, so I've kind of got my hormones are kind of all over the place, and I'm having to manage that at the moment on top of everything else that's going on in life, and the fact that I'm competitive with myself, and there's just so much going on, you know, that you think, okay, so I've got to just break this down, prioritize. And I'm a very scheduled person. I have to be.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and once it's kind of in my diary, in pen, I'm still a Filofax girl, so everything's kind of written down in my Filofax as well as my smartphone and on a computer. But once it's written down and it's scheduled, it happens. Unless there's an emergency. Emergencies don't happen that often. That activity that's in my diary that I've scheduled in will happen.
That's crazy. That's such a structured, and must help you not just with sport, but within your business as well, like that one drive and determination, that positive mindset that you've clearly got, but to be that focused to, like you said, to achieve those goals, like it's really inspiring, and it's amazing to listen to. But like the reason we started this podcast was the whole business and sport and the stuff that you can take from sport into successful businesses. So.
And that's a brilliant point, actually, Sam, about the whole transference from sport to business. And I didn't really know about this until I started my powerlifting, you know, because I became self-employed in 2004. Yeah. After working for different companies, I then kind of set up on my own, was a freelancer in 2004. And I didn't really have a business plan, and I just kind of like threw myself into it, and I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I didn't even know what to charge. I didn't have to get I knew nothing, and I just thought, you know, I'm going to give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? I'll always find a job in marketing, or I'll just find a job somewhere. I'm kind of one of those people. I'm a bit gung ho and a bit adventurous. I just give it a go, and I'm kind of like I like taking risks. And, you know, you just kind of go with the flow of things, don't you? And I didn't really know about sport. I'd always gone to the gym, but I didn't know about strength or anything like that. That just wasn't on the agenda. And you kind of life just evolves, and that journey you go on, you just kind of deal with whatever comes along. But it's when the sport started happening on a serious level and how it was making me feel. And I'm very much go with, you know, how I feel about something. And in business, a lot of the stuff I do is around gut feel, and you talk to different entrepreneurs and CEOs about it. And I think the more, you know, I'm living my life, you know, every day, and the more people I meet, and, you know, kind of a lot of agency owners that I meet, and I've got some friends that own some very successful big agencies, I can see that there seems to be two different camps here. You get the CEOs and the owner managers that are they've got their business plan and it's set in stone, and it's, it's very, very prescriptive. It's very financially driven, and it's very, orderly, planned. It's almost textbook, and this is the way you do it. You've got to have your business plan for the next 6 months, 18 months, 5 years, your succession planning, you get out, all of that's all structured and Great. It's financially driven. You've got your number, everything's in place. And then you've got the other camp, and I think this is where I sit, where it's a lot more about your feeling, your gut feel. You go with what you know, who you know, and kind of it's more not emotionally driven, because I wouldn't say I'm an emotional business person, although that does come into it. Of course it does. It's more about what you feel is right for you at the time, and it's always evolving. So I have structure. Of course, I've talked about structure a lot. So I have to have structure, and I have it for my business, and I have it for my sport, and my personal life is slightly different. There's structure, but not like the other two. Yeah. But I'm very much about, right, what is happening kind of right now, here and now. Let's go with that, and let's follow that kind of structure. But it's got to be agile, and you've got to move with it, because things change and people change.
Yeah.
And I think with the whole COVID and lockdown situation, that's brought it to the fore, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And people, and I think learning, and I've learned a lot, I've made loads of mistakes in my business over the years, particularly with people, and I'm kind of happy to say, and I'm very honest about it now, that I have made mistakes, with decisions I've made, whether it's recruitment, with people that have worked with me. I made good decisions, bad decisions. I've made some good hires, some bad hires, and I think when you talk to any business owner, this is what you'll hear over and over. It's really hard running a business, really tough. And I have had to really kind of toughen up. And I think that's where my sport comes in. Yeah. Because the sport, you know what I'm saying here. That, this is where, going back to the whole, what I've learned from sport and why I continue to do this sport. I do it for me. I absolutely have to, because if I don't, I will fall apart.
Right.
I will, because I won't be able to cope with what goes on with running a business.
Yeah, okay.
It's really challenging. It's really hard.
Wow, okay.
Because I really buy into that 100, because I'm similar. I exercise a lot. I run most day. I've been sea swimming quite a bit recently, but similar. Running is exactly that. I've been running my own business for nearly 15 years now, and it's tough. That people don't see it. We all post on social, and we put our highlight reels out there, don't we? That I'm doing this today, and it's great. But they don't see the 2 o'clock in the morning when you're going through the finances, you're going through emails that you've got to sort out and stuff. And there's that time. And then, like you said, what I'm really interested to talk to you about is the work-life balance thing, something I've really struggled with, and on a personal level, because I've got 2 young kids. I said I want to be a good husband, I want to be a good father, and interesting. I think I read somewhere from something you spoke about, wrote in the past, about that with the sport, you treat that like another business. So it's in a bit of a structure in that sense, which I've heard some guy called Rob Starr mention something similar. Rob from Star Trust? He mentioned something similar, because he does loads of exercise. He mentioned similar to me as well about, if I'm going to train for something, then I'll structure it as if I was going to start a new business, that's what I'd do. So do that similar. But then how does then between that, so you've got your own business, you've got your sport business that you've set up now, that you're doing it because that's how you're running it, but then the family, where does that balance come into it? How do you do that?
That's just brilliant, Sam. Another really great question that I do get asked quite a lot. So the way that I kind of articulate and explain this, so my life is made up of 3 parts that I've kind of touched on in this interview. So I've got my family, and I describe it as 3 cogs. So I've got my family is 1, then I've got my business, and then I've got my sport. There's 3 cogs, and they're all joined up. And if you take one away, everything else falls apart. And the reason that is because they each offer me something complementary that then empowers me and helps me drive the other. So, and interestingly, and if I may say so, the middle, where it's all joined up, it's not me that sits in the middle of all of this. And you know that I mentioned earlier about you can't do this alone. Mm-hmm. You have to have somebody or a network or whatever helping you to do this. And that person, and it will hate me saying this, it's my husband. He sits in the middle of this. I'm kind of like on the outskirts, and he's in the middle, because without his support, I wouldn't have the childcare. Yeah. He helps me in my business. He's an accountant, so he kind of helps me, and obviously with the family. And, and with my sport, he's the one that, will always come and support me. And he's right there in the front row with the children, helping me.
Nice.
So he's the support mechanism. And the three, basically, my powerlifting, you need to be mentally strong to powerlift. Yes, you've got the physical strength. Of course, you have to be physically strong. But if it goes back to what I was saying about attitude and where you are in your head. And when I go to a training session, and if I turn up and I say to my trainer, I'm really tired, I can't do this, he basically slaps me about and kind of goes, get that out of your head. And he'll work me even harder. So I've learned now not to turn up and say that. I'm feeling great today.
Even when you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I have to go in with the right mindset. And I take that into my business. And then I'm happier, I'm stronger, I'm more positive. And my kids see that, and my husband sees that. And so I'm a happier, more content, more fulfilled mummy, wife. I'm more relaxed. I'm because I'm happier and more positive. So what these do, my business, I love working. I've always loved working. I'm a really hard worker, and again, that comes from the values when I was growing up as a family, coming from a Pakistani Asian family. We just as a race, kind of like as a group of people, we just work really hard. It's within our genes. So I've just always worked really hard. So my kids see that. They see me going to work, loving it. They've come to work with me as well. And it inspires them. And so it's kind of all interlinked. And I think the mental strength that I get from the powerlifting keeps me stronger at home and happier, which gives us a happier home life. And then my kids and my husband are inspired by that, and it makes them want to take part. So my daughter's now, she comes to the gym with me. She lifts, she's very, very strong like me. Wow. My boy's not interested in weights, but my girl is. So that's why she's done some of the videos with me, and she wants to be a power lifter. She's like a weightlifter as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I love that.
Brilliant.
I love that. Yeah, amazing. And your husband, is he got his own sport? Is he interested in sport, or is he?
Not at all.
No,
he's not interested in the gym at all.
Really?
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, he doesn't come with me. Not interested.
That you go through.
Yeah,
he's not having any of that.
I've got more muscle than him. He is into football, so he's a football coach. Yeah, he coaches and with Burgess Hill Football Club.
Oh, okay.
And our boy is part of the team there, so he's part of my husband. And my boy are into the football, which is just brilliant, and that's great. And my girl's kind of into the weights, so I've got a gym at home, so she trains with me, and she's got her own routine. She's just crazy. She just cracks on with it, and she's often got the Alexa playing or a Spotify playing, and with her music really loud in the gym with her headphones and her little kind of kit on. She wears my old powerlifting belts, the ones that fit her, and she's just off on one and does her own thing.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
Bless her.
I love it.
Bless her. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Where do you think we're at the moment?
Hey, we've just gone with the flow.
We have gone with the flow.
No.
Just want to touch about the weights. Listening to you talking about the different disciplines and stuff, there is a quick little story I want to share. I remember being in the gym, and God, I got right into it, like I said, and I remember there was this guy that used to go in every morning. So I used to go early in the morning. There was this guy in his 70s, former boxing trainer, and I think he worked with Nigel Benn back in the day.
Wow.
This guy, 70 odd years old, still had a six pack.
Brilliant.
He was every single morning in the gym. Brian, his name was. I still remember I was there, and I remember I'd been in. I'd not long started, and I was doing my weights, and I was giving it some. And I remember doing the bench press. I'm on there, and I've seen these guys doing some heavy weight, and I've put a little bit too much on. I'm like, done a couple of reps. I've got it down and nothing left, and I've got this weight on top of me.
You can't move.
And I'm like, Brian. This is a 72-year-old geezer comes over.
Listen
you
up.
Right, Sam? A little bit heavy there. I'm like, literally, I couldn't show me face in there for a couple of days. You just really.
I think we have all been there, Sam. You are not alone. You're not alone. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole safety thing, isn't there? With that,
it was stupid of me to put that extra weight, but I remember telling a couple.
Good job he was there.
Exactly. Yeah. Brian to the rescue at sea. Just walks over one hand. He's like, "You all right, mate?" And he's lifting it up. I'm like, cheers, Brian.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
Yeah,
I had to share that.
That's brilliant. I think we've all got a story to tell from the gym, haven't we? There's always been some kind of incident or story, and I love that.
Just out of interest, we've talked about all your sort of successes as a powerlifter and sort of the weights you've been at, and with how you've been talking and how you mentally prepare yourself and so on and so forth. I know we've got the Worlds coming up in next month, and you're kind of obviously not kind of sure how you're going to do for that particularly, but can you personally go higher each time?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay.
The answer is absolutely. I think any powerlifter you ask that question will be yes, because powerlifting, it's about numbers. With a lot of sports, it's about numbers, isn't it? Whether you're sprinting, how fast you sprint, football, how many goals, powerlifting is about the numbers. Now, remember, they don't have to be really big numbers, just really tiny. So like for bench press, it's taken me 6 years to go from like 40 kilo bench press to my 55. So even just putting on 2.5 kilos or 1.25 kilos, for me, and it's relative to each powerlifter, because every body part, muscle group is different for every human body. So where I, over the years, have been losing muscle, because as you get older, you lose muscle, I'm having to work even harder to build that muscle. Okay. And that's the challenge that I've got as I get older and every year goes past. But that drives me. Yeah. So then when you tell Aneela that she can't do something or something's going to be really hard, you tell me that and I'm going to work. You go the opposite. I go the opposite. That again, it's just how I am. And I think my coaches, I've got 2 powerlifting coaches, but I train at 3 different gyms. So my powerlifting consists of different types of training. So, I do my powerlifting, a powerlifting specialist gym in Eastbourne, where there's a Commonwealth, my coach is a Commonwealth champion. Okay. So he's just incredible. He's been my coach for the last 6 years. Then I've got a bodybuilding coach who again is a world champion bodybuilding, who's at a gym in Brighton. Okay. And then I've got a 3rd gym again in Hove, and that's more flexibility and accessory work. Okay. So I go to all 3 to do my different, because they're all specialists. So I can't just go to one gym to do everything. Yeah. I go to different trainers. And so with those coaches that I have, and with my nutritionists as well, that's what brings it all together. And so that's what kind of makes it kind of really work. And each time there's a competition, each of them knows that I can do a little bit more. Because I push myself, and the reason I keep training and doing this is because I want to do better each time. It's not because I'm going to just meet what I did last time. That won't drive me.
Incredible, isn't it? Wow. So
even if it's just that 1.25 kilo increase, that is enough for me. That's all it is. We're not talking about doubling. You can't double in powerlifting. It's that incremental. And I've seen lots of powerlifters come and go over the last 6 years. And I'm still there doing it. It's consistency is key. You ask me, what does it take to be a good powerlifter? Yes, attitude. Consistency. Most people will give up, won't they? In a lot of things in life. So the ones that are at the top of their game are the ones that carry on. Even when they're failing and they're not getting there. And I've been through times where I haven't met the numbers, and I go to the gym going, I'm going to get... I have really bad days. Sometimes I go to the gym and I just cannot lift the weight. I've been in tears over it. I have come out really angry that why did my body let me down? And then once I've calmed down, and once the hormones and once everything kind of like, the adrenaline subsides, all that kind of subsides, you then become more rational. And I think a lot of sports people go through that. And you think about the hormones, when you do something like this, you've got various hormones that come into play, don't you? You've got your adrenaline that kicks in. But you've also got your endorphins that come to play. You've got your dopamine, your serotonin, all of this comes into play, and all at different levels. And I think that's what keeps me going as well. And I think because I am also extra hormonal at the moment because of being female and all of that, menopausal, I think it's all a bit kind of coming into... And so for me, the Worlds, I don't know what's going to happen, because it all depends, how my body... at the moment, it's all a bit unpredictable, because I'm just at that time in my life at the moment. And I think that's actually quite exciting as well. So I always try and turn things into a positive and think, okay, I could let that get me down. And I've alluded to you that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do at the Worlds. So that is a slight in the back of my mind. I don't like to be negative. It's not who I am. But I'm being realistic and honest that I don't quite know how it's going to go, but I'm going to give it everything I've got, because I get one opportunity to do this. And I'll be kicking myself and hating myself if I, come away thinking, no, I didn't do everything. I'm going to give it everything. And even if I'm in pain, it's not going to be forever. My body will recover as long as it's all safe, which it will be. I'm going to give it a go because this is my one chance. Every day that's going, might not be morbid, but my life is getting shorter. So I'm going to take every day and achieve something.
Such an amazing attitude to hear, and it's inspiring to listen to. There's a couple of really key things I've taken from what you just said there. One being, I think, like the marginal gains, and I think that in life, especially in business as well, in what we do, but when you can relate it to literally just putting that little bit of extra weight on the thing, and you look at that and what you're doing in life.
Absolutely, Sam.
It's just making those minor changes every single day can improve in some way, whether that is your business, your health, whatever that is. And that's something so important, I think, for people to take away.
Absolutely. And it crosses over into family as well, Sam. So, you've got kids, and I think my kids are at an age where, they're growing up, they're turning into teenagers. There's a bit of an attitude starting up. And it's like, okay, they're pushing their boundaries, they're talking back to me, all of that. So I'm having to adjust, and I'm trying to think, right, those are the kind of little changes that I can make. So I'm very good at reflecting on myself. I do critique myself every day. I'll be like, I'll walk away from this interview thinking, what could I have said or done something a bit better? Just how I am. It's how I improve. So with my children particularly, and they are, they're pivotal. They're central to my life because they are mini me's, and they are kind of a result of me. So if I'm screwing up, and I think a lot of parents do feel as though we're just not. I don't know what the hell I'm doing parenting. We don't, do we? We just crack on every day.
There's no rule book, is there?
There is. With your fingers crossed. I don't screw it up too much with them, but. I kind of look at them and I kind of think, those little, could I have said something in a slightly different way? So I'm very much about tone, how I look at my children, the eye contact, eyes are everything, I often go down to their level. It's just something I learned years ago, rather than towering over them, I often kneel down. I actually do it in my office with my team as well. It's kind of a running joke. I often kind of bend down, sort of kneel, and they're like, yeah, we're not children. You are like my babies, and you can get a different outcome if you make just a slight change in perhaps even a word that you use. You could get a different outcome to how someone responds to you. And I think it's what you said, Sam, about those kind of small changes that you might not even think about, but if you just take a moment and reflect, actually, if I looked at that person slightly differently, or if I just used a slightly different tone, if maybe I took a breath and just speak in a slightly different way, I might get a different reaction or outcome as a result of that. And I think that's, again, with the powerlifting, a lot of it's about breathing. If you don't breathe at the right time, if you don't exhale and inhale at the right time, you can't do the lift.
Of course.
When I do my public speaking, I mentioned it to you earlier. If I, because I do talk quite fast, I mentioned that to you, I get very excitable and very passionate. I want to get my words out. But if I do take a moment just to think slightly about how I'm coming across, and again, that's my PR training, image, all of that, you can get a slightly different reaction from people. And it's same with my children. So if I show frustration, anger, if I'm negative, and my children see that, it makes them feel a little bit down too.
Yeah.
So how I might feel, sometimes you do have to kind of hide that away a little bit. So when you asked me earlier about, it's about winning and how do you manage that with your children, I have to be a little bit mindful because I don't want them to feel negative, because life's really hard at the moment for that generation that have gone through COVID, It's hard. So it is about learning. And I think that's how the three parts of my life, the business, the powerlifting, my family, they are so intertwined, and more so as time goes on. And I remember when I said to my husband, just before COVID, after the British Championships in 2019, when I got my 120 and I'd basically, I'd nailed it. The world is my oyster and that's it, job done. Yeah. I'm going to give up powerlifting now, I said to my husband. His reaction was incredible, because I thought he'd say, great, let's get our life back. He said the opposite. He said, you cannot give up the powerlifting, because the change we see in you and how you are when you come back from training makes our day. You know, it makes this family complete, you know.
I thought you were going to say it's because he gets you out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Probably that as well,
You can't give that up. Those 2 hours when you're gone, I'm doing... This is what I
can watch one.
I can watch what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you know what? That's probably the reality of it, but he knows to say the right things to me, so I'll take that. Yeah, I think that I think one of the words he uses, you're less of a bitch when you go powerlifting. Yeah?
I think something key from that is, and I talk about this a lot on the other podcasts as well, about the journey, because there's always that feeling of going, you know, like you said, you're very goal orientated. I want to get to there. But if you're fixated on that euphoria, man, you get there. Sometimes that can be a bit of an anticlimax. That, you know, we talk about it in business a lot. You know, I'm going to get there, and when I've made my first million or made 10 million or whatever and that financial goal, you get there, and it's just an anticlimax, because ultimately the way our brains work is that we get to that point and there's always going to be another goal, there's always going to be something. So as long as you're enjoying that journey and that process,
absolutely,
as opposed to
that's it, it's the journey, isn't it? And that's what my trainer would love you, because he's always talking about the journey, saying it's the journey. So when I failed at the British Championships a few months back, when I failed the bench press, 57.5, I've never done that, and I tried it. So I got my 50, got my 55, you get 3 attempts, and then 57.5 is something that I've never thought I'd ever even attempt. And I failed it. So it wasn't on the agenda to do, so it was like an add-on. But the frustration that I felt that I never got it, because I knew I could do it. I'd been training really hard. The 55 went up really easily. It was just an extra 2.5, but again, that 2.5 can make a massive difference, because you've got to engage particular muscles and slightly different weight. But my head wasn't quite in the game on the 57.5, because I knew what the weight was, and I went, and I remember sitting on the bench ready. You know, all eyes are on you. You've got the cameras going off. You've got your coach right there. I've got my family there, and it's just like the pressure's on you. You've got pressure on yourself to go and do this thing that you really, 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 really want. And because I knew the weight I'd never done before, that got in the way. And I was there thinking, this is really heavy. I've never done this. Is really heavy. And this is all happening in seconds in your head.
Psychological.
It was psychological. Yeah. And that's what I took away from that, was psychological. And that, because I'm a mental lifter. We're all different in powerlifting, you know, but it's been very obvious to my coaches that I'm a mental lifter, and there are certain words that will use with me, or words they don't want me to use when I'm training, like I've already said, you know, if I feel tired or not in the game or whatever. The switch has got to go off in your head, and not everyone can do that. And I think the sports people that do really well are the ones that they can switch that.
Sure.
And that's what I'm learning, and that's really interesting. You know. Again,
that's part of the journey, isn't it? Part of that.
It is part of that journey. Yeah.
I'm
amazing. What a
really
fascinating, absolutely fascinating view. Great to chat, and so inspiring. Just listening to, and just the different parts of your life and how they sort of all intertwine. But your mindset, drive, determination, and is absolutely incredible. And we wish you continued success in the powerlifting world, I'm sure, and obviously in business as well. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's all right.
Awesome. And that is a wrap, as they say.
Thank you.